Eternals. Wow, the press around this movie has been very unexpected. For those of you that don't know, this is the first film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that is certifiably rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, personally, I think Rotten Tomatoes is vastly overrated, and we as a film community give it far more attention than what it deserves, but nonetheless, it still serves as a pretty convenient indicator for determining what the overall general consensus is for a movie. And the fact that this is the first MCU film to garner a negative rating from the site, that is not a small deal. And the reaction from the Marvel Twitter fandom in response to this negative reception is, of course, hysterical to watch. I've been seeing a lot of posts similar to this where they try to blame the negative reception on the fact that it's just too different from other Marvel films. And it's just so obnoxious because no one is saying that this movie is too different from the other Marvel films. In fact, I've seen most people cite their biggest criticism at the fact that it isn't different enough. And you know, I kind of agree. See, on one hand, this movie tries really hard to disguise itself as something cinematically remarkable. It deals with the creation of the universe and the evolution of man, invoking a sense of like a mature, elevated narrative. It also implements cinematography that is very much inspired by the works of Denis Villeneuve, which Chloe Zhao has stated on multiple occasions was her main source of inspiration when pitching this movie to Marvel. But on the other, it still follows the exact same story structure of any other Marvel film. The formula has not changed, and I think that pissed a lot of people off because the trailers and marketing all promised something more. People were expecting something different because Marvel promised something different and they didn't really deliver. Now, is this the fault on the movie itself? Not really. I'd say it's more so just a byproduct of bad marketing and mismanaged expectations, and it's resulted in critics throwing the baby out with the bathwater instead of giving the movie a fair evaluation. However, the movie itself, independent from the marketing and the trailers, isn't half bad. I don't think it's anything special, but it's certainly not the worst thing Marvel has ever made. Far from it. In fact, I'd even argue that it's easily the best project Marvel has released this year, though that's not really a compliment to the film itself, it's more so just victory by default.
She died. When they were handing out kids, they gave her the toughest one.
Nevertheless, I do think this movie has a handful of issues. I'll start with the characters. Most of the characters were pretty interesting to watch, but none of them really got that much thorough depth or development. Everyone felt intriguing, but only on a surface level analyzation. And part of me wants to look past it because it's an ensemble piece and there's a lot of characters to flesh out, so naturally you can't get them all. But Guardians of the Galaxy faced the same problem, and they did a much better job at handling it. By the end of that movie, each person felt fully realized and meaningful, and after only one movie they became cultural icons. I do not see that happening to this movie because no one received any sort of development beyond a surface level personality trait and bare bones backstory. Also, for some reason, the least interesting Eternal was made the main character, and I don't know why. Sersi is by far the most dull and lackluster member of the team. Her only role is to literally serve as the main protagonist. At least with everyone else, though a bit surface level, they still had things going on with their character. Sersi had nothing. I don't get why she was even in this movie beyond to serve as the most normal of the group. Also, I didn't like the humor of this one, and that almost primarily stems from Kumail Nanjiani. I cannot stand this guy, dude. I fucking cannot. He's not funny. He has the exact same delivery for every joke he's ever told, for every character he's ever played, and never once has it been funny. This is why I miss Robert Downey Jr., man. His comical abilities is perfect for the kind of humor that Marvel wants to shove down our throats. The thing about Marvel is that they love cracking jokes at times where jokes are at best uncalled for and at worst a complete destruction of all the tension of a scene. And the thing about Robert Downey Jr. is that he not only knows how to tell a joke without ruining the moment of a scene, but he knows how to make it feel completely natural and second nature. It doesn't feel forced or corny. It just feels like an extension of himself. Plus, he's like actually funny. Kumail feels forced and corny, and it throws the whole moment off. It's like Awkwafina and Shang-Chi. Just Get rid of them. Also, there's a lot of obnoxious setup in the last 20 minutes of the film that just feels super out of place and forced and annoying, almost to the point where the movie feels incomplete. And this includes the end credit scene, both of them. It just feels like Marvel is trying way too hard to set up for future movies, and I get that they've always done that, but never did it feel as unorganic as it did in this one. As far as positives go, I've heard a lot of people cite the cinematography as being really amazing. In my opinion, this is a little overbloated. It's good, probably better than most other MCU films, but I wouldn't go as far as to call it amazing. However, one thing that I did like was the antagonist of this film. I won't go into any details because the trailers have definitely been a bit nebulous on this subject, but the main antagonist of the final act was pretty engaging. I liked their motivations. I understood exactly why they were doing what they were doing, and it was a super interesting dynamic to watch. Though I do think that the final fight had one too many bad guys. There's one that's really interesting to watch, and then there's one that should have been dropped entirely before the final act even started. I also like the powers of the Eternals, especially in the third act. I think these abilities lend themselves to a lot of visual creativity, which is something Marvel definitely lacks with most of their final fights. And just in general, the movie itself is indeed a very entertaining movie to experience. I think the plot unfolds at a nice, even pace, and I didn't really feel that 2.5-hour runtime as much as I thought I would. Overall, this being the first official Rotten MCU film, at least at the time of filming this video, in my eyes is completely unwarranted. Overall, I'd give this movie a 3.5 out of 5, though I don't think as time goes on I'm going to view this more favorably than I do right now, so if anything, it might go down. But again, I would never call this movie bad. I think that's a very, very large overreaction from just mismarketing and mismanaged expectations. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all the support you give my videos, and I will see you in the next one.